now I'm going to show you guys what I consider to be probably the deadliest no-gi submission, the rear naked choke. Needless to say, many mistakes were made if you're there. It's still possible to get out. There's a few tricks I'm going to show you. The problem with this tight submission like rear naked choke is even if you do everything correctly, you can still get tapped. You know, you can do everything right. You know, if the guys have it, you know, if he's got the position, there's still a very, very big chance you're going to tap. But in any case, it's worth doing something about it before he gets it. Okay. So whatever side he wraps my neck on, that's always the side I'm going to lean on. So if he's wrapping, wherever his arm points, so if he wraps it with his right arm, I'm moving to my left. Always wherever that arm points. That's the opening. So that's going to be my way out. If this guy knows what he's doing, when he gets that rear naked choke, he's going to keep his head in position. Okay, this makes everything harder. If his head weren't in position, it would make my life a lot easier. So I'm going to get my head as close as possible to his wrist just to buy myself a little spacer. Always going to tuck my chin. If I can't do this, it's just going to get harder and harder for me to escape. But if I can get my fingers in there, like I said, this is not an escape, but it does buy me time. What I'm going to do is I'm going to bridge. The first thing I do is I bridge, and the further up I go, the easier it is for me to breathe, the harder it is for him to choke me. So I really press my upper body into his chest. Now, the second thing I'm going to do is I'm going to win what we call a head fight. As I walk over here, I'm going to start pushing the back of my head against the back of his head, because I want to have him in this side position while I'm looking straight up. When I'm looking straight up, this guy can't choke me because his forearm on the side of his neck. So if he applies pressure now, if it were a gable grip, get the gable grip. Even easier, because here you can squeeze all day, squeeze. By the simple fact that if I'm facing this direction, I'll tap. That's the end of me. So it's very important that when I go to my side, I don't fall on my hip. I keep this bridge in position. My belly button is pointing up the entire time, so now I can try to choke all day. Now from here, all I got to do is keep moving out. You know, a lot of times I'll put him in a half guard, maybe finish on top, different ways of escaping that. But the main thing is that I detach my back from his chest, and we end up in this T-like position. So he stays on his side while I'm like this. And this right here is what's going to give me a little space to breathe, because now the pressure is not on my neck and the front of my neck, it's going to be on the side, and that doesn't choke nearly as much. We'll do it one more time. So I buy myself a little space to breathe. I bridge. Okay, so his head is in position here still. I want to push the back of my head there. I always try to reach for his hand if I can. If I can pull that arm out, that makes my life a lot easier, but it depends on where he's putting his hand. If his hand's on the top of my head, it's always easier to pull it off. If he's hiding that hand behind his head, or behind my head, that makes it obviously a lot more difficult. So I'm going to, look at the trick. So I'm here. If he tries to finish me here and I'm looking this way, I'm going to get tapped, okay? But look at what I do. Look at my hips. I rotate my body. I try to free my right shoulder, in fact. So my right shoulder is on his chest. So now when he puts pressure, there's nothing there. He can squeeze all day. All I got to do is move my hip out. So basically, whenever I'm escaping this rear naked choke, what I'm always trying to do is look up to the sky, and I keep my body pointed upwards. My body is I'm never going to be here. I'm going to be here the whole time while this guy remains on his side. So as I move out, I don't move out like this. I move out like this, walking my feet out, so my belly button is pointing up the entire time. If I'm looking up, I'm not getting finished. I'll do it one more time. Just to buy me a little space, I took my chin. I'm going to bridge, okay? And I'm going to rotate. Look at my right shoulder. It's stuck on his chest. I'm going to push it in front of his chest. And that right there pretty much, that pretty much gets me out of the rear naked choke. There's not that much you can do here. If he's still tight here and I can't because he's not letting go, sometimes I can even push it over the top of my head. Especially people with small necks, and when they bring their shoulders up, it really covers half their head. Sometimes their arm will be up here and you can even push it over the top of your head. But that's not going to finish you. All that right there doing is holding you in place, and then I just push it over the top of my head if you really need to get out quickly. Okay? One more time. Okay, gable grip. Gable grip now. So if the gable grip is the same thing, look, I just press my head in front of his head. What I'm trying to do is get his head and his arm on the same side. That right there pretty much puts me out of the rear naked choke. My shoulder's still a little stuck, so I'm going to free my shoulder, get my shoulder in front of his chest, and that right there puts me out of the rear naked.